Hey, what if I told you that during your 1 hour church service last weekend, 2,500 people died and went to hell? And what if I told you those 2,500 people, in all probability, were born, lived, and died, never having an opportunity to hear the message of Jesus before they died? What if I told you those same 2,500 people make up a group of more than 3 billion people that live in the world today? And what if I told you that the church is doing very little to reach those 3+ billion people in the world today with the message and the story of Jesus? When I first learned these numbers a few years ago, I was shocked. And that's what I want to talk with you about and educate you about these numbers also. So let's get started. These 3 billion plus people are what are known as the unreached, meaning unreached with the message and story of Jesus. What makes someone unreached? It means, because what I hear a lot, well, my neighbor isn't a Christian either. Well, I understand. This is not a question of whether these 3 billion people are Christians or not. They are certainly not Christians, and they are in the same category as your neighbor in that respect. Both are not Christians. It's not a matter of whether they're Christians or not. It's a matter of whether they have access to hearing the message about Jesus. These 3 billion people, in all probability, will never have the access to hear the message of Jesus before they die. Your neighbor, who is not a Christian either, has access to hearing the message of Jesus because you are their neighbor. You are right there. Your coworker, who is not a Christian, has access to hear the message of Jesus because you are there. The friends on your basketball team, your softball team, whatever, your robotics team, who are not Christians, they have access to hear the message of Jesus because you as a Christian are there and with them in proximity. Okay, so we're talking about people who do not even have the opportunity to hear the message of Jesus. And then some people will default to, well, then they will be okay because God will take care of them. And I caution people, well, think about where that thinking leads us. Because that thinking leads us to say, then there is another way to enter into the kingdom of heaven. There is another way to get to the Father, another way to get into the kingdom of God, than through the doorway of Jesus. So aren't we essentially saying if there are other ways to get into and become a citizen and a member of the kingdom of God, then Jesus really didn't need to come and be tortured and die and go through all that? And I think that is a very rocky place, dangerous place, slippery place to be standing, loose rock place to be standing. So just think about that. Now let's get into some actual numbers here to give you a better idea and help you understand a little more about these 3 billion plus people who are unreached and will in all probability never hear the message and the story of Jesus. The majority of them live in a place called the 1040 window, which is 10 degrees and 40 degrees. And I only spent 9 years in the Navy. I still don't know the difference between longitude and latitude, but it's 40 degrees or 10 degrees horizontal north to 40 degrees horizontal north, like this, more or less 10 to 40. And it covers the areas of, so just work with me here. Think of Africa. So we're going to start with the part of North Africa. Think of North Africa. Then over to the Middle East, then over to Central Asia, which is like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, all those, Kazakhstan, and then on to Southeast Asia and Asia. So it is that part of the country. That is about 1/3 of the entire landmass of the world contained in that area, and it has about 2/3 of the world's population. So there's about almost 5.5 billion people live in that area of the world. And of those, 3.3 billion people, I know these are rough, but 3.3 billion people living in that area called the 1040 window are what we call unreached, will in all probability be born, live, and die, never hearing the message of the gospel. So about 97% of all people who do not have access to even have the possibility of hearing the story and message of Jesus live in that part of the world. Now here's where it gets tricky, that the church is doing very little to reach that part of the world, and here's what I mean by that. So let's take the United States. The average household income in the United States is about $75,000, roughly. So we're going to use that as a nice round number. We're going to assume Christian households make, on average, the same household income as everybody else. Christians. Every Christian household, for that $75,000 that they bring in, they give a total of $12.75 to go toward funding efforts to reach the 3+ billion people that are unreached with the message of the gospel. $12.75 out of $75,000 of income every year. The church as a whole sends out, for every 33 missionaries that the church sends out, they will send one that is focused on reaching those 3+ billion people who are unreached with the gospel. So when I say the church is doing very little to reach the 3 billion people, that's what I'm talking about. Christians, where do Christians live? 99.999% of all Christians live and work in areas of the world that are already predominantly Christian. So yes, from my perspective, we as the church, me included in this, is doing little to reach the unreached peoples, the 3+ billion people of the world. So next week, when you're sitting in church on Sunday, just think 2,500 people are dying who in all probability had no opportunity to hear the message and the story of Jesus before they died. And what am I doing about that? What is my church doing about that? So I don't want to just leave you with that. But before we get to some steps you can take, I want to tell you about something that I think will help you with this. What I have going on right now is I just started it. It's called the Northstar Challenge is what I've called it. And the whole concept is to give you a North Star around which to orient and live your life, all areas of your life, to support you moving toward that North Star. So here's the way it works. It's not a normal challenge like you may be used to, where you get emails every day for a few days, or you watch videos on your own for a few days. This is actually a one-on-one, you and I, one-on-one on the phone for 30 to 60 minutes, walking through a process for those 5 days to help you develop a clear North Star for the next 12 months of your life, so that you can orient all of your life, all areas of your life, to support you moving toward that North Star. That's what we're talking about. Here's the way you sign up for that. All this information's in the show notes, so you can find it down there. The cost is $20, but hold on. The $20 doesn't come to me. I get nothing out of this. None of the money comes to me. In the show notes, you will find 3 organizations listed who are focused on reaching these 3+ billion people in the world who have no access to the gospel. What I want you to do, there's the 3 organizations along with links to their websites. I want you to pick one of those organizations, and my recommendation would be at least check out the websites of all 3 and then decide which one you want to donate $20 to. Once you donate $20, take a screenshot of the completed donation. Send that screenshot to me. There's a phone number listed in the show notes and an email address. Either one works. Send a copy of that screenshot to either the phone number or the email address. I will contact you and we will set up our first call. And then the schedule is very flexible since it's just you and I. So the second, third, fourth, and fifth calls, we can still work around your schedule. That will help you get a Northstar to orient all areas of your life to support that. And you're also supporting some great organizations there that are working to reach the 3 billion people. All right, so we understand the situation with the unreached peoples of the world, the 3 billion people. We understand we as the church, especially in the West, we are not doing much to reach those people with the message of the gospel. So here are 3 concrete steps that you can take right now, and this is all listed in the show notes also. But the first one is simply to educate yourself about these unreached peoples. Educate yourself, and a great website for that, a great place to go is something called Joshua Project. If you just Google Joshua Project, it'll come up, but I have a link in the show notes. Go there and just look around, and it will educate you on the unreached peoples in the world, where they live, how many there are, you can learn about them, and so forth. The second thing I think would be a good idea for you to do is to acquaint yourself with the common thread that runs from Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22 about God making his salvation known and his name great amongst all groups of people in the world. And there's an article on Medium that I wrote. I'll just warn you, it's about a 28-minute read. There's a link to it in the show notes. But it will walk you from Genesis all the way through Revelation, tying together this common theme of God's heart. And that's what I call it. It is getting God's heart. And then the third thing you can do is to support people and organizations that are working to reach the 3 billion people. You can go yourself, okay? You can pray for people that are working there amongst the unreached. You can mobilize and get people to go to the unreached. And I think a big one right now that we need is people to advocate within their church, within their group, their circle of Christians that they hang with, to make aware the fact that these 3+ billion people exist in this world who do not, in all probability, have access to hear the message of Jesus. So that's my challenge to you. That would be my action steps I would recommend. Joshua Project website, look through that, read the article that walks you from Genesis 1 to Revelation 2, showing you the common theme, and then begin to pray for, support people that are going, consider going yourself, mobilize others to go, and then make your Christian community, the people that you know, aware of what's going on. If you like this, if you found this beneficial, would you like it? Would you maybe share it with somebody that you think might like this and get something out of this? And also subscribe. Until all here.